2 years ago, Theresa May had a brainwave. Call an election, dissolve Parliament, and increase her majority. It failed spectacularly. Incredibly, there's now speculation that an election could be her way out of this mess. If Theresa May does call another general election, it would represent a stunning backtrack, mainly because, well, she's previously said she doesn't want a general election. It's against Conservative Party policy, and, crucially, almost no one in the Conservative Party actually wants another general election. And yet, Theresa May could still be bumped into having one simply because, well, what else is she going to do?
I call Sir Oliver Letwin to move the Amendment A, formally.
Oliver Letwin's amendment has teeth. It means tomorrow Theresa May loses the order paper. Parliament will decide what it wants to vote on. So one could ask, how can you govern in a parliamentary democracy without the support of Parliament? A general election now isn't Conservative policy. Theresa May doesn't want one. Her party doesn't want one. So why are we talking about it?
Well, there's two ways in which it could come about. One is obviously if the House of Commons votes no confidence in Theresa May. And the other is if Theresa May feels that she's been pushed too far and says that she needs to actually call a general election because Parliament and the government have hit an impasse and there's no other way through.
Here are some problems with Theresa May doing that. The only way a general election would give her a greater mandate would be if the election itself was framed around Brexit. As her former Director of Strategy points out, that didn't happen in 2017.
In 2017, that was the view that the campaign team took, was that if we could frame the election as being about Brexit, which is what we want to talk about, then we would ultimately prevail. Unfortunately, the public took a different view, and they said, actually, we don't want this to be about Brexit, we want to talk about all these other policies. And if you remember, Jeremy Corbyn had a really populist manifesto with lots of big ideas that went down very well. And actually, the public decided that's what they wanted to talk about. So thinking about an election now, going into one would be very difficult, because how exactly would you frame it? Would it be another Brexit election? And actually would, over the course of the weeks of the campaign, would the public actually allow you to talk about nothing else? So you need policies on all the sort of other areas. And it's not clear at all, after 2 years of talking about nothing but Brexit, that the government actually has any of those to talk about.
The good news for the Conservative Party is that Labour would have problems too. Labour's deputy leader was at the march on Saturday calling for a referendum on Theresa May's deal.
I can only vote for a deal if you let the people vote on it too.
What do we want? People's votes! When do we want it? Now!
But if a second referendum was included in the party's manifesto, how would that square with Labour MPs who've campaigned passionately against delaying Brexit?
But what do? I mean, you literally have a Labour manifesto in your hands, and the key tenet of that manifesto you don't agree with.
Well, that does present an individual challenge to one's honesty. There's no getting around that. What individuals do will be very much up to them. And quite clearly, there are difficulties for people, both in the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. In that instance, framing a manifesto for a snap election, which, if it all melts down this week, is obviously much more likely than it has been for a long time, is going to be really difficult.
As for the Conservative Party manifesto, well, it's difficult to see how any wording on Brexit could placate a deeply divided party. And Theresa May's headaches don't stop there. There's that small issue of what the public thinks. At the moment, there's very little indication that they're in the mood to back Theresa May.
For what they're worth, the opinion polls at the moment suggest we're back to Conservative and Labour being roughly even Stevens. The SNP still dominating Scotland. In other words, they are pointing towards another hung parliament.
Calling an election is fraught with pitfalls and dangers. Most in Westminster think it's a bad option for the Prime Minister. But in a world where everywhere she turns are bad options, it's possible she decides it's the best bad option she's got.